Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vicki Poole. I'm a life coach, health coach, and hypnotist at the Enlightened Peach. And this podcast is all about embracing our mosaic life. Some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life? Well, it's recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing, and we are different. And with that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. And this podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I will be your host, and we'll have special guests from time to time. As a matter of fact, I have a wonderful guest for you today. I'll introduce her in just a moment. But if you have any ahas or questions, please leave a comment or a voice message. So now, let's get started. So my guest, I actually met her on in a course that she and I were taking together, and so her name is Marigol Era. Is it Era?
Yep.
Okay. And this is her bio. She says she's a multifaceted being, a creative force, a healing guide, an internal learner, a shadow worker, and an unschooling mother. What else? She's also a freedom fighter and a nature lover. She's a little bit anarchist around the edges. Is that all? No. She's an artist, a writer, and a communicator. She's also an Ayurvedic wellness coach and a spiritual life coach. And mostly, she's in a constant evolution, as so are we. She says she strongly believes that we are all spiritual beings having a human experience, that she senses we are here to evolve, and that every experience we encounter is an opportunity to grow. And that's why she specializes in helping people bring more awareness into their lives. And she has an amazing story for you today. In her point of view, existing here on Earth means being able to keep in touch with our spiritual self and the day-to-day mundane stuff. So she's here to help people transform their experiences, small and or big, into learning so that they're growing up instead of growing old. She says there's a shift happening on Earth, and that she's part of creating this revolution, one spirit experience at a time. So wow. When you sent me that bio, I was like, oh, I love it. So we've had one amazing conversation that was going so well. I recorded it and everything. So, but let's just kind of start. I know you have a story to tell, and you were in the foster system and different things. No?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't in this foster system. I did work in
Okay,
that
you worked in
system.
the foster system.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I wasn't as a child.
Okay. All right. Good. So just glad you corrected me on that. Like I said, this is unedited, so my mistake. But I know you said you unschool your children, and
Yeah.
I thought that was fascinating. But tell us a little bit how you began this journey of enlightenment that you have come to now.
Yeah, it started pretty early on for me. Like I was in first grade and I was already realizing that things weren't right.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like the school system wasn't like aligned for me. I didn't feel connected with adults. I didn't feel like I could trust them, or like I felt like everything was off, and I was very sensitive to that. And so yeah, pretty early on I was already feeling this disconnect with the
Mm-hmm.
reality I was actually brought into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so like at the end of first grade I got really sick and I got hospitalized, and then after that on it really felt like I didn't know how to connect with the world, you know?
Mm-hmm. So when you say you got really sick and were hospitalized, what was that about?
Yeah, I was well since birth, I was always having problem with my ear, and I was in children's hospital all the time when I was like a baby and growing up.
Mm-hmm.
To fix that, they never did. They never actually did fix anything. They just like got things worse, and we got to
Mm.
this point where I got really allergic to the medication they were giving me to heal me,
Mm-hmm.
and
And you
it
said it was your
just
ears, correct?
yes,
Okay.
yes, and yeah, so it was like all the time. So I lost a lot of hearing,
Mm-hmm.
and still today I'm still like trying to heal that and trying to regain that part. And but my ear are still like pretty sensitive from all the surgery I had when I was like very young.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so that moment when I got like really allergic and I got like hospitalized for like a couple of weeks or so, um felt like a rebirth or something, like a
Mm-hmm.
reboost. Like I can
Mm-hmm.
actually just like breathe and be more in my own rhythm that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, my parents weren't like aware that we had like choices about like education, like it was like in the 80s and stuff. And so
Yeah.
like people didn't know by then.
No, and I don't really know that back then there was as opportunities like there are today to
Yeah,
do something
exactly.
different. It was you send your kids to school every day, or you get in trouble.
Yes,
The truant
exactly.
officer is going to show up at your door. Where the hell's your kid?
Yes.
So yeah, so it was a very different time. But I think I remember that you were saying that when you really noticed the disconnect the most was when you came back to school after being sick and you had some issues with bullying. Am I remembering correct?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And my second grade, I remember my second grade, my teacher was so freaking strict. All that she was like, she felt like a nun. She felt like this old lady that was like super bitter about like teaching. And so she was super strict all the time. And I remember going in the corner, like to just like stand there and like wait for her to tell you, okay, you have done your time or whatever. Like I just didn't know how to act in that school system. It felt very foreign for me, and that's when I shut down. And I feel like by me shutting down this part, like you can see it through my pictures, my school picture, like kindergarten, I'm like ding, I'm like super light, super like joyful. And first grade the same. At the beginning of the year, I was like super pumped about like going to school, and I was super proud to be there. And second grade, you see my picture, I'm like super stiff and like I'm faking my smile. I
Get me
don't know
out of
how to
here.
act. Yeah, exactly. And it just didn't feel right. And like yeah, by me shutting down, like when you attract all kinds of stuff because of your own stuff. And so by me shutting down, I started to attract all those bully. Well, like I we can like call them bully or whatever, but I feel very like I own this experience in my life. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is, I brought this by me shutting down, by me dimming my light, by me like being scared all the time, not feeling listened up to, not feeling safe.
Mm-hmm.
I just attract all those
Oh yeah.
people to me.
People who have this bullying tendency can kind of, scope out the crowd. Yep, there's one. And they know which ones they can manipulate, and they can put the fear in them, and they can, manipulate in all kinds of ways, So it's it's amazing because, I think you and I talked about this, we have this vibrational field that goes around us. And, and if we're projecting out that we're
Yes,
strong and we're, in tune with who we are, the people that are out there wanting to take advantage of us don't really try to penetrate that field. But if we
exactly.
have that feeling of disconnect, and we have that feeling of being afraid or not being enough and those kinds of things, it's a lot easier for somebody to just get into there. So
Yes.
yeah.
For sure. For sure. It took me a while to take responsibility for what happened. I used to be a pretty good victim of that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
really deep into victim mode, and like, like just continue engaging in that circle all the
Mm-hmm.
time, and like until, like, I don't know, college, I guess, where
Yeah.
I started to feel more myself.
So what happened that you were feeling this victimhood and you were having a lot of experiences that kind of helped you to say, yes, that's who I am, to suddenly being like, I'm not that anymore.
Yeah.
What happened?
um well, actually, my mother died, and like me and my mother, we'd never had like a really good relationship, and I feel like by not being loved, or like it's always felt like I was disappointing her. Even when she was talking to me, she said that. Even my father was like always like, it's hard to love you, you're difficult, and so when my mother died, I was 17, and it felt very freeing for me at that time, like if my main bully was actually gone of my life. And I remember my father told me, this is my house, this is my rules. If it's not for you, take the door, go away. And then I was like, fine. And then I went, I just left my house.
That had to be
And
hard at
so,
17.
yes, but it was freeing at the same time, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So I had like this roommate, and like we had like all kinds of party and stuff. I mean, we were pretty young, and I was going to college, and I was like studying, and it felt very freeing and, yeah, very liberating for me to have this experience.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it took me a while to grieve this woman because I felt so angry at her. I didn't feel sad that she was gone. I felt free, but
Mm-hmm.
I was still holding on to that anger that I had towards her. And so
Right.
that I wasn't all free, I
Mm-hmm.
was still like in jail,
Yeah.
energetically, because I hold on to that anger
Yeah, it's
for.
like I can't remember who it is that said it first, or I would say who it was, but I've heard this many times that holding on to anger and resentment is the same as taking poison and expecting the other person to die, because
Yes.
it's not, most of the time they don't even know that you feel that way, but you're hurting yourself internally and spiritually.
Yeah, and in that case, like, my mother was literally dead, so she
Yeah.
she wasn't like, she couldn't be like less aware of me being so
Yes.
freaking angry all the time.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so it just, yeah, if like I had like a lot of healing to do and to release that, and now
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually free of that part of my life.
Yes.
But it
And
took
I,
me a
I
while.
remember
Yeah.
you saying something about you got a little wild.
Yes. Yes. Like that anger, like when you're that anger, when when it fuels your life, yeah, it's gonna bring you into some dark places,
Yes. And making some very unhealthy choices.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes, but at the same time, I felt so restricted all my childhood, and my teenage years. And so by me stepping out of the house and, like, yeah, being angry, but it felt like I needed to go through those experiences, like the drugs and the sex and like the rock and roll and the traveling and, like all that stuff, like that I couldn't like just experience as like I not that I wanted to experience drugs or anything, but like to experience stuff that I was like sovereign of,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
and a lot of times when people are suffering with things like that, they're looking for anything outside of themselves to make themselves feel better. So that's why
Yes.
some people will go to food, some people will go to sex, some will go to drugs.
Yes.
And, so there's a lot of different areas that people go to, and it's just to self-soothe.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah, a part of it was definitely that, and a part of it was also I just wanted to have fun,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
my whole life didn't feel fun, and it felt like very, yeah, restrictive all the
yeah.
time.
Finally got
And
the handcuffs off. You were ready to go.
yes, it's like someone has been in jail all his life, and then you get them out in the wild, they're gonna go crazy, and that's kind of what happened to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah.
So I remember you saying something about you did this amazing road trip.
Yeah.
And so, tell our listeners a little bit about that, because it was kind of, I was a little envious because, just getting in your car and just going and not knowing where you're going or not knowing anybody and having the strength of character or person or whatever it is to be able to do that, because I can't see me ever doing that, in my life. And so I'm always fascinated with that. So tell us a little bit about that.
That's so funny because right now, if you would have just invite me in that kind of trip, I would say no right away. Like I would never do that right now. It's like, but at that time, um, yeah, at that time, like I wasn't doing drugs anyway and anymore. I wasn't like doing alcohol. I wasn't doing anything. I had like a pretty peaceful life at that moment. And I was working in that farm where I was like connected with this old guy that owned the farm, and it felt like, yeah, he was my father or something, because I never really have had a really good relationship with my father as well. And so like that man felt like home, it was like, and
So
so I was,
how did you know him?
it's just like circumstances, like
Mm-hmm.
I was in Montreal, and life got really weird at that point. Like my boyfriend just left me because he was cheating on me, and I got left in this apartment that I couldn't afford. And so my father felt like he needed to save me or something, so he brought me back to his home, and that's where I met this other man that was like a friend of the family that told me, hey, this guy needs someone for the summer to help him with the farm. And I was like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, let's do this, anything to get out of this house. And so I started to work there, and then I started to live there. He had like an apartment in the on the top of his house. And so like life got very nice very
Hmm.
quickly, like very in touch with nature suddenly, like, and like getting my hands in the dirt, and like
Yeah.
connecting, like when you work in greenhouses and you got like those like hundreds and hundreds of plants, and you got to do the same thing for each of them to take care of them, you get like in that meditative state. Like it just happens naturally because you're
Yeah.
just doing the same thing. It's hot, you got like all this nature around you, and it's just like it felt like meditation all day.
Nice. Well, I know for me, just if I'm feeling stressed, if I can just go outside, put my feet on the ground or hug a
Yeah.
tree or just go for a walk, it kind of helps it to just kind of go away a little bit. So that sounds like it's that little pill, so to speak, in a massive way. So yeah,
Yeah, it
perfect.
was it was so like it was like one of the best time of my life. And I was like painting a lot, and this lady saw my work, and she was like, I need to show your work in my gallery. And then I was
Oh
like, shit,
wow.
yeah, cool, all right, like I got like all these invitations, felt like everything felt very nice, very aligned. And at the end of the summer, yeah, I just felt that something had to die inside of me, like after living all this drugs and like all that chaos, and like living that moment in that summer of like peace. And it felt like part of me just needed to die, and I couldn't work there anymore because it was like, you know the
It was
season
your
end.
old you energy.
Yeah, the whole me needed to die, so I could just keep on doing this kind of life that is very peaceful. But like I could still touch that anger inside of me. Like it wasn't gone, it was just like distracted or something.
Yeah,
So when the
yeah.
season ended, and I couldn't go in the greenhouses anymore, and like the nature shifted. And so yeah, I just took all my money. I bought myself a car, an old Mazda 323 hatchback. I just like I just like laid those back seats. I put some like cushion, and like I filled the car with my most precious stuff, and the rest I left behind. And I just took off. And I was in Quebec. And so I did a little bit of road tripping in Quebec for like just a couple of weeks. And then I decided to cross Canada. I didn't have a plan really. I was just going with the flow every day. And if it felt like I needed to be on the road, I was on the road. And if it didn't feel like it, I wasn't like on the road. And it felt very like I left with like $1,000. Like I didn't have much really. Like, and I ended up in BC, British Columbia, and I just met that lady that was operating a restaurant there with a camping in the back, and she offered me to stay there for a while, and so I stayed there. And then winter was coming, and it started to get like super cold, and so I was like, yeah, that's my cue. I'm heading south. And
Moving
so
with the wind.
exactly. And so yeah, I
So
felt like
what do
yeah,
you think? Because you worked at the restaurant for a while, right?
yeah,
While you were there. So what do you think was the one thing that maybe came from that helped you on this journey? Because I feel like there are no accidents. So
yeah,
there's a reason that everybody comes into our lives, whether it's to teach us something good or something we need to work on and everything.
yeah.
So what was it that you learned in that process?
Um, yeah, that's a good question. Well, that lady was also from Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
That was like, and at that time, yeah, at that time my English, like I could understand everything, but I wasn't like as comfortable as I am right now to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so like going through like Canada was like mostly English all around, and then
Mm-hmm.
getting to that place, that last space before I go into the States, where like obviously no one can speak French.
Right. Because French is your
And
native language, right?
yes, French is my native language. And so like by being there and working there, like I had to speak with people,
Mm.
and it felt like no one could understand me at the beginning, and at the end I was like very like much more comfortable with speaking English. And
Oh,
like,
nice.
and so I I I stayed there for, I don't know, probably like a couple of months or so. And so I was working at the restaurant, and she was like giving me free lodging, and like she was feeding me, and at the same time I was like speaking with clients. And so by me doing that, I started to get like very comfortable in English, and I had like a couple of jobs over there. Like people got to know me, and like it was like a super small community over there. And so, oh, you want to come and work with me for a couple of days, and so you can make more money. Everybody knew that I was like traveling, and so that I needed to pile more money because I left with barely like nothing. so
Mm-hmm.
so people were just very friendly, and like taking me in,
Oh,
giving me
that's great.
jobs.
So
And
that
so
gave you a kind of a spiritual boost in some ways,
exactly.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. A spiritual agreement that I was on the right track, kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so then I just flew south. Well, I didn't flew because I was in my car, but I
Well, you
I
could have
just,
flown because I
yeah,
know
I
I've been in
could
a car
have.
and I've flown.
Right? And it was my first time on the West Coast, and it was magnificent. The energy over there was so nice. I was on the East Coast all my life, so like the sea was very different, people were very different. Like I remember like falling in love with Oregon. It was like so beautiful over there. And when I got like in California, like the north of California was stunning. It was so beautiful. And then I got to the south, and it felt very foreign, very, very like the desert, and like people like the gangster, and like and somehow over there everybody was living in their car. And so I was traveling,
Mm-hmm.
but homeless people were living in their car. But like from where I'm from, people that are homeless doesn't own a car. But like in
Well, there are people, I'll just share this real quick. I have a Prius. And there's some groups on Facebook that are Prius owners, and there's actually a Prius camping group where people that live in their cars, because the Prius is a little bit different from your Mazda that you had. You can have it cranked up and it'll shut
yeah.
down and just use the battery. So you can actually have the air conditioner going all night long. You can be comfortable, and it'll just shut on when it needs to and everything. So, but there are a lot of people that choose to
Yeah.
travel living in their cars. So it's amazing. I don't think it would be exceptionally comfortable in my opinion, but a lot of people do it. So that's pretty fascinating. So where did you say you were then?
I was in the Coachella Valley,
Okay.
like in the south of California. And I did go like in Arizona and like Utah and Nevada. I did all those things, but I ended up very much more in that Coachella Valley in the south of California,
Mm-hmm.
where homeless people were actually living in their car. And like so I my vibe was very different over there because like policemen, they were like arresting me thinking that I was like trying to like sell drugs or something, like I was very in tune with nature, and I was like gathering plants from nature. And like I remember that one time they just like the police just like ripped my car away, like they just take everything
Wow.
of my car, and they found those plants that I actually gathered from like everywhere I was going, and they thought that was weed. And I was like, dude, that's not weed. Don't even try to smoke that, okay? And but they were like the police over there were not like what I'm used to, and they were not joking.
Well,
And like
evidently you weren't what they were used to either.
exactly. So I was like, but I got like this shock of like everywhere I was stopping for gas, people were living in their car and like panhandling, and like, and I wasn't doing that, but as as much as I wasn't doing that, they were doing that. And like people were used to that culture of like
Mm-hmm.
the people that are living in their car are like drug addict, or and all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff like that. But I wasn't, and it felt very weird. And I ended up in this refugee Christian camp. I'm not quite sure what it was, but like they were like welcoming people that were homeless for the night, and they were feeding them, and they were speaking about Jesus. And they wanted me to stay there. And i I just didn't know what to do. I was stuck there for like a week or so. I didn't have any money left. I didn't have a visa. I was like, I felt screwed. I felt like shit, this thing like just bite me. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
just got bitten really hard by life. And I don't have any money left. I'm just stuck there. People are weird here. Like I can hear gunshots every night. And like I felt very unsafe. And then this man came to this refuge, I don't know, this church. It wasn't really a church. I'm not quite sure what it was. And started to talk to me. And he was way older than I was. And I was like, something inside of me felt very safe with him. And he asked me if I could, like, if I wanted to go with him to do, like, to get his car. And like, and I was like, okay. And I just tuned into my intuition, and I went with this guy that was just getting out of jail. And I don't like, telling this story right now is so freaking weird because I would never do something like that right now, right?
Right.
But my
Mm-hmm.
intuition was very on point. And from everyone that I was seeing, this guy felt very safe. And every time he was speaking to me, it was like super, like, I just felt safe. Like it was like he was native and he knew the land. and he brought me into the desert. Is it desert? Yeah, it's desert, right? It's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he brought me into the desert, and he knew all those space, and so for 6 months we lived together in the desert, and he didn't have a home, and he was living in this car, and he was a drug addict, but he wasn't using while he was with me because I was very against it. And so we started to team up, we started to, and he felt very safe, very sweet, and he was bringing me coffee in the morning, telling me hello sunshine and all kinds of stuff like that. He was very sweet, beside, like, even though he was like also homeless and older and
Mm-hmm.
former drug addict. And so he started to work at this taxi company, and we bought like a motorhome where we just like started to move our stuff in there, and we lived together for 6 months. And at one point I got pregnant, and that's how it happened.
So where did your
and
car go? Did you pull your car behind the camper? What did you do with your car?
Well, actually, the place where we were working together at this taxi place, and they had like a very big parking lot. So my car was in there, and the motorhome was in there as well. And so we were like living where we were working.
Oh, okay.
So
All
it
right,
was like
cool.
it was a cool arrangement. And so yeah, so I got pregnant, and my intuition, like, when I don't know, probably my intuition was always very strong, but like being in a traveling state like that, your intuition just kicks in very
Yeah.
strongly,
It almost have
because
to, right?
yeah, it's almost like a survival mode kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
And but I felt very connected. Like I felt like I was so like protected by spirit, by energy, I don't know, by something that was like around me. And when I got pregnant, I knew that I needed to have this kid, even though I was like a former chaotic person, and even though this man I was with was also super chaotic and like way older. It was older than my own father. So, and he was coming out of jail, so he couldn't be crossing the line in Canada, and I knew I couldn't give birth in the States because I wasn't citizen, and I didn't have the money to just give birth in the States because it's so expensive over there, but in Canada it's free. um so I decided to go back to Canada, and then I went back to this restaurant I was working at.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember calling my family to tell them like I'm pregnant, and everybody was like, you're gonna get an abortion, you need to get rid of this baby, you're gonna screw up your life, their life, like it's bad news. It's not like, everybody was freaking out, and I was just smiling and just like, I know deeply, so deeply, that I know that I have to have this baby. I have to give birth to this baby. And it was so strong, and it was like so peaceful inside of me. Even though like even though the setting of like the whole thing was like a bit chaotic and crazy, it felt so right to have this kid. And so yeah, so that's how I ended up being a mother. And I came back to Quebec. I came back to this place where I was living with the farmer, and
Mm-hmm.
I gave birth over there. Well, in the hospital, but like I was living there, and it was such a great experience. It was the most empowering experience of my life. And
You said you did natural birth, right?
yes,
Yeah.
100% natural. When I got in Quebec, I couldn't get like a midwife because I was too late in the process, and like no one was available. And so I just said, fuck it. I don't need a midwife. I'm just gonna do this on my own, whatever it needs, whatever I need to do, it's gonna just show up. And so I surrounded myself with my two best friends, and the mother of one of my best friends that felt like my mother as well. So they were all there for the birth, and it was just magical to be there and to say no to the nurses that wanted to plug me with all those things on. I was like, no, I need to be free. This is such a big event. Like, I'm not gonna be like plugged into whatever you want to give me. I'm like, screw that, you know. And I,
Yeah.
I just felt so strong, and I was like, I wasn't taking any shit, and I was like, I know, I know what I know. I know how this is gonna go, and this is just how it's gonna go. You know, like
Right. Well, you were in the hospital, so if something had happened, you would be able to
yes,
take care of it, right?
yes,
But the thing that is amazing to me about birth, and I've had two children, and my first one was an emergency C-section, and it was, really, but I was going through a lot of stress at the time too, so I'm sure that was the main culprit of that. My second one was just, here we go. But when you think back years ago, women used to have their babies sometimes while they were in the field working. To pop, there it goes, and then they keep
yes.
on working. And it's like, and I know that's not what we want to get back to, but because I certainly wouldn't want to be out in the field having my baby, but it's kind of interesting how, as Western medicine has become more and more popular, how much it has come in and dictated exactly the experience that you're supposed to have. And they even, you can see commercials on TV, everything is geared to making it this medical experience.
Yes.
And so, it's pretty cool that you were able to feel into yourself and say, hey, I want to do this my way. And you were able to do that. So I applaud that. That's really cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was very empowering to be there and to, well, it wasn't my first screw you the system. Like, it wasn't my first one, but this one felt very much more like
Most empowering one.
yes, yes.
And it
And
wasn't your last one either.
no,
Let's
it
just go ahead
wasn't.
and say that.
It wasn't. And so, yeah, so it was like such a great, great experience. And like coming back home with my baby, and like I think I told you, like I didn't have any books. Like, it was all from intuition. And
Hmm.
my intuition was like, well, you just spent 9 months with that being, so why would you not sleep with this little baby that needs you to be like to be so close with you and to have your warmth? Because um I gave birth in November, so it was cold. I was in Canada, like it's cold, and so it felt very natural to just sleep with my baby and to carry her all around. I was like wearing my baby
Hmm. And I
everywhere.
think if I remember right, you were even saying that you were doing everything all natural,
Yes,
with not being concerned with diapers,
yes,
and that you were so in tuned with her that
yes.
you knew exactly when she needed to be cared for in that way, correct?
Yes, exactly. When I was in the home, when I was home, she was never wearing diapers, and but my grandmother actually made me some diaper like in the whole days. She's
Hmm.
like, so she made that for my daughter and me. So I was like cleaning her diaper and stuff. And when we were going out, I would just put one like to make sure. But most of
Hmm.
the time, I was still able to just like put her in the like over the toilet, or I like I knew when she needed to feed. I like my body was like telling me all that stuff, that like I was like so committed to being a mother. And so like she never cried for anything as a baby, because I knew when she was hungry. I knew when she wouldn't want to be like in my arms, or when she needed to be like on the ground exploring stuff, or when she needed to eat something. Like I felt it in my body super deeply. And so it was like a super simple, loving, awesome relationship like between a mother and a daughter. And it was very healing for me as well, because my relationship with my parents were so messed up. So to have this felt almost like a redemption. Like I
Mm-hmm.
didn't go through that experience like that, but like looking back, it felt like, yeah, it feels like it was very healing for the daughter in me.
Right,
Like
right.
that time where I was a daughter and I wasn't like being listened to, and I wasn't like being cared for in a way
Mm-hmm.
that felt aligned for me.
Yeah, it's
And
kind of like that pendulum swing too, because
yes,
there's the polarity. And so you had this experience over here, and so you let the pendulum swing all the way over here so you could have the exact opposite
yeah,
experience with your daughter. So
exactly.
that's really cool. And that's a great example of how you don't have to keep creating the same thing that happened to you, because that's what a lot of people do, is they
Yeah.
do what they experienced, even though they were miserable, is what they know.
Yes.
And so it's your intuition really is on point with guiding you to make the changes to where everything goes totally opposite of what you experienced.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It was such a cool experience.
Yeah, yeah.
It
I
was
bet I bet
awesome.
you guys have an amazing bond, right?
Yes, still today, yes.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, how old did you say she is now? 11? Am I
11.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
she's 11.
Yeah. And
So,
you've got a couple of other children now, right?
yes, yes. Well, I got married down the road, and my husband had like a daughter, which is very funny because they're like 9 months apart.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I gave birth, her mother got pregnant. Like
Uh,
basically like
yeah.
super like in tune like that. So they're almost twins. They're the same height, you know.
Do
They
people
don't
ask
really
if they're
look
twins?
well. No, what the funny thing is, my daughter looks like my husband, and his daughter looks like me. And so it's very funny because like we used to go like to the restaurant, and they were like, well, they're twins, and or this one looks like you and this one looks like him, and it was like, yeah, yeah, right. You know.
Yeah.
Oh. So yeah, so I have a stepdaughter, and then like later on I got pregnant again, and I gave birth to this little girl that is now 6.
Mm-hmm.
And that experience was a whole other spectrum of giving birth. It was like the exact opposite of what happened with my first one. And so I was like supposed to give birth at home with midwives, and I was like living in the forest, and like it was like all kinds of beautiful. I was with this man, I wasn't single mother, like it was like the exact opposite. And I ended up having a C-section, an emergency, gassed up, very traumatic birth, and I didn't connect like as much with my second child, and it felt like just like a funny spiritual like gift. You had like this perfect
Yeah.
experience. You're such a badass mother. Look at what happened. Like look at what happened for you, and then this other thing happened, and it's like, shit, I'm such a bad mother and I can't connect with my
Well,
kid. It's
it's
awful.
getting back to that pendulum swing. You can't keep that pendulum over here. It's got to
Right,
start moving. So it would be almost impossible to recreate that massive
yeah,
of an experience, because the pendulum's got to move a little bit. But
exactly.
isn't it amazing how we can do something and it's not of our own choosing or anything like that, like you having to have a C-section, but then you start feeling like comparatively you're a bad mother, you
Yeah,
know and it's mind-boggling to me how much we take responsibility for things like that. And with our children as they're growing up, and if they do something wrong, it feels like we've done something,
yeah,
and it comes to mind. There's a movie I saw many years ago, and it's with Steve Martin. It's called Parenthood. Did
yeah,
I share that with you?
No,
I
but I
don't
saw that
remember, but
movie.
anyway, the in the
I saw
movie,
that movie.
why it comes to mind is because for those of you who do not know this movie, Steve Martin has a son, and the son's wanting to play baseball, and so he wants to be his son's coach. So he envisions his son's out there playing ball, and he's such a good coach that the ball's coming at him. He's in the outfield. He puts his glove up, and he catches the ball, and everybody applauds, and he's graduating from college, and he's saying, thank you, Dad, you're the reason that I've become who I am. And then he also has a vision, because he hasn't really caught the ball yet. He has a vision of him missing the ball, and when he misses the ball, he sees him, in the future, standing on the top of his college dorm with a machine gun, people plowing people down. And it was like, when I saw that, it was like, that is how we as parents feel a lot of times. Like, whatever we do, we're either making them amazing or we're making them horrible, and it's funny when you think about it, but that's what we do as parents. Don't you agree?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, most definitely. And the second one, yeah, that's what I felt. Like I felt so powerful, like as a mother, and everybody around me was like cheering me on and like telling me like how good of a mother, and like coming to have advice from me. And like I was like, shit, man, I'm such a good mother, like the ego is like super huge. And then this lady, this little girl came to my life, and my ego was like,
Yep. Here you go.
and it was very humbling. And but like right now, like this child is like my heart and soul. Like I love her to death. I'm
Yeah.
always like, I'm so lovey-dovey with her, and it's awesome. But at the beginning, she was kind of a pain in my ass,
Well, you have to have one that gets you on your toes. I will say
Exactly.
there's one of them. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and I'll have to share. I've got two children. My son is 9 years older than my daughter, and I say he's the one that I had the C-section with. It was a very traumatic birth. And all these different things. Well, he was a challenge from the day he was born. A challenge in so many ways, and so it's funny to me that as I went through the process of raising him and everything, there was so many things I just didn't know what the hell to do most of the time, and because I didn't have the same kind of feelings and all that he did. And so it was, and I remember telling him one time, that um I said, I just don't know what to do at this point, help me out, because I don't know how to handle this. And when I was pregnant with my daughter, when my pain started and everything, I looked at my husband and I said, oh my God. He said, what? And I said, what if we have this one and we find out Nicholas was the good one? All of a sudden I had this horrible fear, because I'm telling you, it was a major challenge, his whole life, of how to deal with him, and and everything. And so it was like, all of a sudden I had this fear, and my husband said, well, there's nothing we can do about it now. It's got to come out. So but very different children, the birth. And so I sometimes feel like the anxiety and the problems that kids have in the beginning, especially, a lot of times I think it comes from that traumatic birth.
Yes. Yes, I've seen the difference between, and my stepdaughter is also a C-section child,
Mm-hmm.
and her self-confidence is like super low, and she has like trouble owning who she is. And like as a mother, like with my first child, I was very like what's the word? I was I was almost like, not, I wasn't careless at all, but I felt so in tune with her that I wasn't in fear all the time. Like most parents are like, don't climb there, don't go there, like they want to protect their children. But for me, since I was so deeply connected with her, it didn't feel like I needed to, micromanage everything.
Mm-hmm.
But with my second one, I'm suddenly like super scared of everything. Like she's going to
Yeah.
the pool every week with her father, and I'm not going because she's very wild, and I'm so scared that I don't want to go because I don't want to step her boundaries and like give her that fear, because I know that her father will just take and throw her, but she's only 6, and I'm like, she's only 6, but she's like she's such like she's such a physical person. And so she's always like doing anything, like climbing on stuff and like jumping and like rolling. Like she's got like all those roller, like she's got like this skater that she will roll through the house, and she's always
Hmm.
like super extreme with her body. And I've seen myself being like, like super scared and like
Yeah.
trying to go over there. Are you sure? Are you okay? And like
Yeah.
it's not the way that I was. I don't know myself like that as a mother with my first child. I was like,
Hmm.
that's cool. She's okay.
Yeah. And you're a little bit older too. So that could be part of it too.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe. But
But the
the
thing that I think
C-section,
is really cool is, and I had never heard this term before talking to you about doing the unschool.
yeah,
So maybe share a little bit about that because you
yeah,
had that in your bio. Share a little bit about what that is because that was fascinating to me.
yes. So, um, throughout my life, I wasn't really into anything system, institutional. Like it never felt very aligned for me. And so after giving birth to this first child, I was like, whoa, super awesome.
The heavens
And
open.
yes, and I just wanted to still be in touch with her, but like at that point I got sucked into the pressure and like doing money, and so I got back to university. And while I was back in university, I had to put her through kindergarten. And it felt very like school for me to have them like sitting in silence together, eating at the same time, doing the same drawing, the same activity. And like it felt very like structured, like school, like they were preparing her for school. And she got really sick. She was sick all the time.
Hmm.
And for me, like from what I understand of life, what you cannot say with your word, you say it with your body. And so I was very much in tune into like that kind of nonverbal communication with my kid. And so every time she was sick, I was like, shoot. And I was like analyzing and what's going on. And she wasn't speaking, like she got her speaking skills got like late in the game, like she was like 4, I guess, because she didn't have to speak with me because I understood her. So
Hmm.
so so she wasn't really speaking. So when she wasn't with me, like I couldn't get the gist of what's happening for her really, but her body was telling me that she didn't like it, right? She was
Hmm.
always sick, always like throwing up and like all kinds of like cold and like fever and stuff. And so it just felt like it was very misaligned. And so I decided to just take her out of the kindergarten, and I stopped going to the university, and I made a deal with my now husband that he was gonna just work and provide for us for a little while until the moment where I can um I don't know, something would came up. And
Hmm.
so so that's when I got in touch with unschooling, and I started to follow those wonderful women that are like taking care of their children since birth and throughout school years. And I was like, oh well, that sounds nice. Like it feels very natural. Like people like families stay together, and like childrens are going to learn what they need to learn throughout the process. And
Hmm.
as parent, we are like the guides, the facilitate the facilitator
Facilitators.
facilitate
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. What
But
she said.
well, that thing.
Yes. But real quick, I just want to touch on when you were talking about it with me when we were talking the other day, is in my mind, I was going to, that's homeschooling, but that it's nothing like homeschooling.
No,
So
that's
maybe just
it's not.
share that, because other people may feel like I did. It was like,
Yeah,
okay, unschooling, homeschooling, same thing.
yeah,
Um,
it's not.
so just
um,
kind of explain a little bit about
yeah,
what that is.
the homeschooling, it's like you're schooling at home, so you're doing the curriculum, the the books
The
and like the
schedule.
schedule, like, and it's basically school but at home, and so you can be more like self-paced, like with children one-on-ones. Sometimes the one-on-one is very helping for some children to get them to learn the stuff they're learning in school. And so that can be helpful for that kind of people. But for me, doing that was like literally being hell on earth, because I didn't want to be my kid's teacher. Like, I'm not a teacher. That's not who I am. That's not what I do. I like to I like to experiment stuff. I like to show stuff. I like to be there for her and like put stuff together to help her learn what she needs to learn. But I'm not a teacher. I couldn't be a teacher and a parent. That's not me.
Mm-hmm.
And kudos to those mothers that are doing that, because that's something else.
Yeah.
I actually tried it a little bit, because being in Quebec, we needed to, because the government was like putting their nose into our business, and so we needed to follow the curriculum. But it screwed up our relationship, because like,
Yeah, because you have to be kind of more heavy-handed. Well, this has to be done, kind of
yes,
thing. Yeah.
exactly. And like, when your kids in school and the teacher is doing that, well, they have the safe place where they come back home and they can speak to that. They can speak about it with their parents, that are their safe place. But like,
Right.
if I'm the teacher and I'm putting pressure, like, who is she gonna turn to, you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
like, I'm the only one there, and so we talked about it so many times, and she was like so frustrated, and she was like, I hate that. I hate it. And she even got to the point where she hated to read, and she never wanted to open a book, and like, she was very like much in reaction. She actually reads right now, but she will never open a book. She will read stuff online. She will read like all kinds of stuff, but she will never open a book, because she got like traumatized by me putting pressure on her, because the
Uh-huh.
government was pushing pressure on me and saying that if I don't do that, they're going to take my children. That it was crazy. So that's
Yeah.
why we actually moved from there to be in a new province where we actually are free. And so it's very much like, so in unschooling, there's no curriculum. The curriculum is the kids that is making it for himself, as he goes through life.
Mm-hmm.
So my daughter was like very much into horseback riding, and so she started to read. She started to learn to read because she loved that, and she was like taking courses and classes, so she had to identify parts of the horse, so she had to read those parts. And and yeah, so for like 4 years she was doing that pretty much every day. She was going back, she was going to the stable and learning how to ride animals and stuff, and that was very cool. And so, as an unschooling parent, my role was to find her the best stable, the best teacher, to support her, to give her lift, to facilitate or learning with the horse and stuff. I never was in touch with horses before, and I learned so much stuff with about that throughout those 4 years. It was fascinating. It was
Yeah.
so cool.
And I remember you saying something about she gets interested in learning a language and she just starts learning it.
Yeah, so she when she was like 6, she showed interest in learning English. So I found it was kind of a group of homeschooling people that were also trying to learn English. And so like they were going there for the whole day, once a week, to learn English together. And so she was going to that, but that wasn't enough. And so she started to by herself, like try to understand lyrics from songs, and she started to watch movies in English, and then she started to play Minecraft, and then she asked me to go online to make an ad to find her friends that are speaking English so she can learn to speak English with them and play with them in English. And so she did that. And so for a couple of years now, she's been like learning English, and she's pretty much bilingual. And then she fell in love with anime, and now she's learning Japanese.
Yeah.
And so, and that's my role, to help her uh, in that process. So she's not just learning Japanese, she's learning all kinds of stuff about the Japanese culture. And she now wants to go over there, and she's trying to, organize a trip, and like budgeting, like how much it's going to cost and what would she need. And, like she's doing her own research regarding to that. And like all of her YouTubers are from Japan, and or like American Japanese people. So they're all like speaking about the culture. And so she's learning a lot about that. Like in unschooling, they call it the YouTube University. People are like, the kids, they're just like very into YouTube, and they learn so much. And as parents, it's our role to support that, and to be that um how to just be sure that the info they're getting is real. So to help them double check, to help them
Do the
do
fact check to
research.
make sure that they're
Yes,
not listening to somebody who's spouting a lot of things that aren't true.
exactly.
Oh,
And
that's good.
I remember when I was in Quebec, the critique that I was giving out from the government, it's that my children were doing stuff from high school, and they weren't supposed to. They were supposed to be like doing stuff from elementary school, and so they were too advanced. And so I don't know why that is a problem, but but it is what it is. Like my oldest daughter, she already like started 5 businesses. She's like, she's doing stuff every day to build herself up, and she knows exactly who she is. She knows how to put boundaries. She knows what she wants. She knows how to say what she wants, and that's very powerful.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's even like a little freaky as parents, like your kid's gonna say, they're
Yeah.
gonna tell you, like
That's
they're
right.
not gonna hold back anything. They're gonna
Yeah.
say like, no, that's
There's none
not
of that do as I say, not as I do kind of
exactly.
thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's more of a teamwork, like it's kind of, we're living in community, like, but we're still parents. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're not parents. They're not like, they're not
Right.
in charge of our lives.
Right.
And we're still like cooking and paying the
Yeah, yeah.
bills.
Well, I think we had talked about one of my favorite books that I recommend to anybody that are talking about their children and stuff is the Creating Innovators. And I
Yes.
don't even remember the author's name. Do you remember it?
I'm not sure. I can check it out.
Yeah. Because anybody that wants to have children that can think for themselves, and because the school system back because I just watched a YouTube just not too long ago about how our public school system was created, and what it's all about. And it's really just to create people that are happy with being employees, and it's not giving them innovation to be creative. And if you look at a lot of people that have become amazing creative people in their lives, like Steve Jobs and things like that, where they think
Yes.
so far out of the box, they actually, and I don't have all my facts, so I don't know, but from what I understand, most of them didn't graduate from college or didn't even
Exactly.
go to college and
Yes.
those kinds of things. So it's almost like that they were able to think outside the box because they didn't stay in the box too long. I don't know.
Exactly. Yes.
But it's pretty neat. So did you find the author?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I don't
I don't
know.
have my phone in here with me because it seems like if I do one of these and I've got my phone, something ends up alerting me, or my watch will start talking to me, answering a question I've asked or something. So I leave them in the other room. So so I can't look, but the name of the book is Creating Innovators. If you put it into Google and just put that, it'll show you who the author is, but it's an amazing book. So let's see, I remember from your bio, you also do the Ayurveda, which I'm always fascinated with that. I had a guest on the other day, and she is a I don't know if she's an Ayurvedic coach, but anyway, I was telling her I've done some testing and everything, and supposedly I'm a tridosha, and that kind of gets a little confusing with me when you are trying to feel, let me get more balanced, and it's like, but if I was Kapha, I'd know exactly what to do in this situation. But so it's amazing stuff. So do you coach on Ayurveda now?
Yes.
You do?
Yes, I
You want
love
to
it.
speak on
And
that just a minute?
yeah. I mean, the Ayurvedic practice for me, it's such a blessing. And the school that I went to, the Shakti school, was very much in tune with the feminine form of Ayurveda. So there was a lot about like the subtle Ayurveda, and so like the energy and how like everything is um everything is how to say that, it's like everything is building you and destroying you, like it's
Mm-hmm.
not the just one thing. That's what I love
Right.
about Ayurveda. It's like
There's the
when
yin
you
and
do.
yang on everything.
Yes, and so you say you're tridoshic. Well, we're all tridoshic. Like
Okay.
everybody, like no one has no bone, no one has no brain, no one has no blood, It's just like everybody's got those three dosha. And like what I like about that, it's like the doshas are actually are imbalances. And so when you know how to rebalance yourself, it's you become sovereign of your own health. And for me, like the health system in the Western world, it's just not working, like when if I broke my bone, yes, I'm gonna go to that system and I will be super glad that it exists, but
Mm-hmm.
if I have like a cancer, and God bless I don't, and if
Knock
I
on
had
wood.
like, knock on wood, but if I'm like having imbalances in my digestive system that ends up in ulcers and stuff like that, I don't want to go there because I know they're going to screw up the rest of my health. And
Right.
so,
But yeah, because I even had somebody I was talking to the other day that they had gone to the doctor and the doctor prescribed this one thing. And so as they were using this thing in their body that was supposed to take care of the problem, it started creating another thing.
yeah,
So they go back to the doctor and they said, well, now you have to take this to counteract this thing that's going on. And it was becoming like this domino effect of all these medicines they were taking. And it was like, everything was creating something else in their body. And it makes you think too, when you see the drug commercials on TV and they got all these people and they're so happy and everything's great, they're playing tennis and stuff, and then it's telling you, and then the side effects could be death. And it's like, well,
yeah.
how important is that eczema to be gone, and you're dead, so it's really, it's blows my mind
Yes.
sometimes. And I almost feel like, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, so don't anybody, well, you can say something if you want to, if you have an opinion about it too, but I feel like years ago they took cigarettes commercials off the TV because it was detrimental to your health. And
Mm.
I feel like it is totally wrong to have all of these medical prescriptions advertised on TV, because now people think that they can be their own advocate and they can go to the doctor and say, hey, I saw a commercial about this one. I think I want to use this one. Well, who's the doctor here anyway? And if they're spending all this money on these commercials, somebody's kicking something back. And, so it just feels like if they took the cigarettes off to help people, let's face it, people still smoke, but I think that they should not be able to have the drug commercials on there either.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like that in Canada, but I have heard.
Oh, okay. It's not?
No, because since our system is like public, like they are not allowed to sell stuff like that on TV. But since your system is different, I've heard about that, and I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy.
Yeah, you need to Google some different commercials on YouTube,
yes,
and you'll be shocked at the things that they say, at the end of it. It's probably something for your stomach to make you feel better, and it could cause severe diarrhea, nausea, death, and all these things. It's like, oh my gosh,
that is so crazy.
Yeah.
So
back to your Ayurveda. Sorry, I didn't mean to get on the soapbox there.
I mean, that's awesome. But yeah, I felt like I needed to be more sovereign in that. And since a long time, since in my 20s, and I'm like now in my almost 40s, but it's been like almost 20 years that I've been very much interested in the effect that the mind has over the body. And so when we go through stress or trauma or whatever, it shows up in the bodies, and the link between those two is very interesting to me. And so I was always like very much aware of what's going on in me. And I think like seeing my mother passed away from cancer too, like it's not awesome. It's
not a pretty thing.
It's not beautiful at all. It's like to see people going through that. It's like, yeah, maybe I'm gonna take another road. It doesn't feel really cool to go through that. And being the woman that she was, like very much closed up and never talking about who she was, and like going through all those traumas without even speaking to no one. And of course she ended up having a cancer that
it's got to come out somewhere.
Exactly. And so Ayurveda was like another way for me to be more sovereign, and because it's such a systemic approach, like when that's what touches me, like when you're in this, let's say, vata imbalance. Well, it might be because you're eating too much airy stuff like chips and popcorns and stuff like that, or it could just be because you're always thinking and like spinning and like just doing too much screen time. And then it can actually create an imbalance in your system, in your digestive system. And so it's like, that's why it's so interesting to me, like to see, to meet up with people and to let them know how this whole thing that you're creating every day has effects on your health.
Right.
So that's what I love about it.
Yeah. And I'm even one of those people that I work with I work with some people that are trying to reduce their weight. So they're trying, and one of the things that I'll tell them too is that, it's almost impossible for somebody that has been binging on chips and dips and all these things to suddenly say, I'm not going to do that anymore. So I work with hypnosis and everything too. But the thing that I'll tell them is, instead of counting calories, start counting chemicals. If you look at a bag of chips and it has chips, it has potatoes and salt, go ahead and eat those chips. Yes. But if it's got this lengthy list of all the chemicals that you cannot pronounce or anything like that, then stay away. So you can still indulge in some of those things that may still not be that healthy when you're trying to reduce weight,
Yes.
But it's actually a healthier option. And so it's starting sometimes with those baby steps. Yes. And one of the things that I love about Ayurveda is that, it actually Of course, I'm not a practitioner like you are, but when I started looking at Ayurveda, because I have like cookbooks and I have books and stuff, and I love studying all this stuff, but it was like you take this test and it can actually tell from your disposition of your body and different things where you fall in the spectrum, and then it actually gives you great insights to say if this is what you're really experiencing, then if you will do this, it'll help you not to be experiencing it. And and
Yes.
with supplements and more of the plants and learning how to eat differently, and so
Yes.
it's such an amazing practice to get involved with. And I wish I could say that I use that all the time. I do not. But I even became vegan for quite a while, and I'm now a reformed vegan, I guess you'd say, because now I'm eating a little bit of chicken and just a tiny bit of fish, but I still feel more comfortable with the vegetables and everything.
Hmm.
And so once we're all done with this, I'll have to pick your brain a little bit and find out
Yes.
if I'm just where it is I'm supposed to fall in that. So, but
Yes.
we'll get into that later.
Yes.
Yes. But one of the things that I feel is amazing is that when you can put your mind, your body, your spirit, and everything
Yes.
working together, then you're healthy. It's when things are
Yes.
like, it's like having a tire that one side's flat. You can keep driving on it, but pretty soon you're going to have to replace the rim and everything. So
Yeah.
if we're not taking care of our health today, then at some point we're going to be having to take care of our sickness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that's the thing. Since it's all related, sometimes when we want to get back in health state, we want to go like we're trying to be like exercising and eating more good stuff. But I had one of my clients that was having problems with her period for as long as she could remember. But as much as I would love to just tell her, do this and do that, and you're going to be healed. The thing is, we started to speak, and then suddenly she opens up about like her first experience as a woman, as like a lover, as a sexual being. And it was so traumatic and so painful that we needed to heal that for
Mm.
her to get back in touch with her own femininity, and to be like very in tune with her body that was like very dirty, in a way,
Yeah.
because her first her experience was such traumatic. And so by healing that with
Mm-hmm.
Ayurvedic practices that are like coming into like more of a realm of spirituality, and like taking time to be your feminine side and taking time to observe your body and learn your body instead of eat that and do that, and
Mm-hmm.
it was
Yeah.
more of learn how to be.
Right.
And then like her period just got back to a state that is very much aligned every month. She used to have like her period every 6 months,
Oh, wow.
and now she has them every month. It's not painful. It's just perfect. And it wasn't because she wasn't eating well. It wasn't because, she was doing all the wrong things. And it was all like rooted in a big trauma that she went through when
Yeah.
she was
Yeah.
younger. And that's what I love about Ayurveda, because it's going to take that in account, you know,
Right.
when you do like the questionnaire at the beginning of a Ayurvedic consultation. You go deep into those stuff too. What's your relationship with spirituality? What's your relationship, not even what you're eating, but what's your relationship with food?
Yeah.
What's your relationship with your mother?
Mm-hmm.
you
Well,
know
I have always had a problem with my weight and food and different things like that. And so that's one of the reasons I got involved in, health coaching and life coaching and
yeah.
hypnosis and everything, was to help me.
Yes.
And the thing that's interesting is that at some point in my life, and I don't know if it's because I don't know if you've ever done this because you're that perfect parent, but and I'll
I'm
put that in
not.
air quotes for you for those that can't see this. But I remember so many times, your kid falls down and you say, oh, it's going to be all right. Here, have a cookie. Just have this lollipop. And, you go to especially when my kids were little, they were always, give them a sucker, give them a lollipop, even going to the friggin' dentist. And I'm thinking, you're cleaning their teeth, you're trying to make them their teeth healthy, and you're giving them a sucker. But anyway, I'm sure that played into the fact that I looked for comfort with food. And so it's, something that has gone on. And I've even found, at times in my life that I was looking for distraction with food. If I was doing something that felt a little bit too difficult or just beyond my grasp, it was like, I think I need to go eat something. And I would just not hungry or anything. And so what I've been doing for myself is getting in tune with my body more, so that I know when I'm hungry, I know when I'm thirsty, I know what my body's asking for. And so sometimes, it's like realizing that just because the clock chimes 12 doesn't mean you're supposed to eat now. What is your body telling you? And I think that's and I think some of my abilities of that knowledge not only comes from some of the schooling I've done, but some of the Ayurvedic practices that I've adopted and learned about, because it is primarily what it's doing, in my opinion, and I think from what you said, is that it's helping you to center in and see who you are and what's going on and what you need to do to fix it, or to not fix it because that implies that you're wrong, but to alleviate, transform. That's a good word. Thank you.
To just transform it.
Transform what's going on with your body. And like you had said that about the cancer, there's such so many books that I've read that will link to how you are imbalanced in your body and what you're eating and how you're feeling is more, because let's face it, you can eat the healthiest food on the planet, and if you're doing it under stress and anxiety, your body's not using it right.
Exactly. My teachers always told me, you're better to eat it's best if you eat a freaking burger and enjoy it than a salad and like hating it.
Yes.
Like, go eat your burger, it's gonna be like, you're gonna digest it well, better than what you're gonna digest the salad that you ate and you're just like disgusted by it.
I remember there was a motivational speaker I heard years ago, and I don't remember who it was, and he said that he decided years ago he wasn't going to eat cottage cheese, and somebody said, why not? And he said, because only fat people seem to eat it. Everybody he saw was at cottage cheese and fruit, or cottage cheese, and and I thought that was really, really profound thing, because whatever somebody says, this is the magic. Like, I remember at one point there was a cabbage soup diet, and so there's all these things that some person comes up with and says, hey, if you do this, you'll lose weight, and everybody goes, okay, let me do it.
That's what I love about Ayurveda. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle.
You got to be like in tune with your body, in tune with nature, in tune with like what's seasonal right now, And
yes, that's like, really, really big.
I'm not perfect either in that realm. I mean, like, we have children, the food costs a lot, and like I'm not perfect, but I really enjoy eating better. And what I love most is very much like more in tune with mental health and like how this affects our bodies, because I feel whatever you eat in the right state of mind, it's going to digest, and everything you eat in the wrong the wrong state of mind,
the negative state of mind, maybe.
like when you're beating up yourself, while you eat, or
Mm-hmm.
feeling distracted, like eating like in front of a screen, or even sometimes when we eat in families, like in a family setting, and everybody's speaking, and you're eating and you're all stressed
Yeah.
out because like everybody's like interacting around you, and it's
Yeah.
not like, so you stress your own body while you're eating, and then after that you're like, oh, I'm full, or because you didn't listen to your own body while you were eating. They
Mm-hmm.
say in Ayurveda, they say, when you if you stop eating after the first burp, if you're in tune with your body, you'll notice that burp. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet you will after I'm saying that.
After this.
All right. So if you
So that's
stop
your
at,
challenge, everybody.
yes,
Notice your burp.
exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
And if you stop after the first one, you're like a yogi. If you're stopping it after the second burp, then you're like an Epicurean, like you like having fun no matter, yeah, whatever
Mm-hmm.
happens. And if you stop after the third one, then you're masochist because you're gonna hurt your body because you're gonna eat too much. And
Yeah.
so just it's the simplest practice. You sit with your meal, you listen to your body, and when the first burp comes, ask yourself, am I really still hungry? Even though
Mm-hmm.
my plate isn't finished, even though like whatever,
Yeah.
am I still hungry? If you are honestly answering yes, go on until the second one, no trouble, but watch out.
And you've probably heard of this study before, but I'm just going to share this real quick because what you said just really hit me. And this is something I tell some of my clients. There was a study, and I think it was at uh, Yale, but I'm not sure. To be honest with you, I'll see if I can find it. Because I have so many books, I've read so many things, and I have all this knowledge in here, and sometimes it pops out and all the information of where it came from is not there. I'll just
I
share
know.
that. But anyway, there was this study that was done where they took these group of people, and they took them into this room, and they had food on their plates, and they gave them the plates, and they told them to eat till they were full. And so they all did, and almost every one of them cleaned their plate. Well, then they brought them back in another time, and they were told, and the circumstances were the same. It was the same time of day. They told them, not to eat prior to coming in. So all the parameters were the same. But this time they blindfolded them before they let them eat. And nobody cleaned their plate because they were not being triggered by the food that was there that they were leaving on the table. And so I thought that was amazing because I remember as a kid, and I've seen it on TV and stuff too, where they say, clean your plate. They're starving children and wherever, and so it's really interesting that the study shows that, if we're not looking at our food, we are in tune to our bodies a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I
Had
think
you heard that study before?
I haven't, but I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
The conditioning of
Mm-hmm.
cleaning your plate, it's such a big one, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone has been through that. My parents told me the same thing. People
Yeah.
in Africa aren't eating,
Yeah. And
you
when you
know.
think about it, and I know, like I said, food has been one of my poisons of choice.
Yes.
But there's been so many times that I would know I was full, but I could see that this dish that I love was still some on my plate. And it was like I just couldn't walk away because it's so good.
Yes.
So it's when you take away the visual, you don't know how much is there, and you become satisfied so much easier. So
Yes.
of course, I know we can't sit and eat our food, blindfolded. I mean, we could, but it would be kind of weird. So I think it's just using some of your tools and being more aware of your
Yes.
body and slowing down and listening.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
so simple. It's complex. I'm not gonna say it's easy,
Yeah.
but it's simple. It
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
simple, and the more simple it is, I know, it's just the more accessible it is.
Yeah.
And so
But there's also the saying that the easier something is to do, the easier it is not to do.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
So
just
It's all a choice.
Yes, everything is part of the deconditioning of what we were brought into, and
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff that our parents told us that we didn't know weren't like they weren't trying to do us harm. They weren't
Right.
like
They
bad
were
people.
they were
They were
telling the same
conditioned as
story.
well,
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
They were
yes.
just like playing their part, but I think I think it's either we stay in that state or we choose to evolve. And for me, I chose to evolve, and I'm choosing that every day. And
Mm-hmm.
every day, every experience I'm going through is an opportunity to be stepping into the better version of myself.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
always growing. As I'm growing, the better version of myself is growing as well. And so we're always like, in a relationship together.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's just going through those little things. It's so easy, to stop eating after the first burp. Like, what a big commitment. But it,
Mm-hmm.
like, I remember I did that class like 4 years ago, and I remember starting to do that and teaching my kids to do that. And they were like, oh man, I'm eating way too much, like,
Yeah.
and then like by eating that after the meal, they are like, we are all more energized. It's so
Right.
simple, but like when you eat too much, you feel full, you feel heavy, you
Mm-hmm.
feel
Or, and
like,
if you eat the wrong things too,
right, yeah,
because it's kind of like one of those things that's like it one thing creates another, like this little domino effect of you overindulge one day and and then suddenly it's like the next day you start having a craving for one of these things, and then you have another craving, and it's like it just grows and grows, and it's
yeah,
and not to say there's anything wrong with us, it's just that we need to, or it would benefit us if we could get more in tune and pay attention. And
yes,
so that's one of the things that I'm doing right now with having just started putting some meat into my diet. I can see some days that doesn't serve me, and it
yes,
feels like heavy,
yeah,
um and then sometimes it's like I feel like it's just perfect, so I'm trying to figure out that balance and doing that. And I really became vegan. I was reading some books about health, and I became vegan after I read Diet for a New America, which was by John, I don't know, I hate this and I don't remember, but I'm sure the book is over there somewhere. But it's Diet for a New America. But that not only made me think about whole food, plant-based diet, but it was a lot about the food industry and
Yeah,
how horrible it is for these animals and all these different things. And so I really didn't know if I would ever be able to eat meat again.
yeah,
Um, and it was like, as long as I'm doing it ethically sourced, I feel
yes,
better about it,
yeah,
because that's the kind of the natural selection thing,
yeah,
but I do feel like I want to stay more plant-based than I
yeah,
do meat-based, so, but that's just what
yeah.
works for me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing that I love about Ayurveda. It's like it's such an individual, like it's not like because you have this imbalance, you have to eat that. Like sometimes I will have a like a caffeic imbalance, and when I try to put ginger on my plates, it's just gonna fire me up too much, and then it's not gonna be balancing, but for some people it will work.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Yeah.
we're all different. And so I'm exactly like you. If I want to eat meat that one day, I will go for it. But if I'm not in need of it, I'm not gonna force myself
Right.
doing
Right.
it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like I've been vegan as well, and I've been keto, and I've tried all those
Yeah.
things,
Haven't we all?
right? And then when I found Ayurveda, it was more freeing,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just you eat what's in season, you eat what is whole. Like they say, if you can't pronounce it, don't
Don't
eat
eat
it.
it. Yeah. 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 That's
you
me.
know?
And when I first started this health kind of journey too, I would go into the store and I would look at the ingredient list and I would look it up. I would Google it. What is that? Oh my gosh, I don't want that. And now there's an app that you can do. I think it's called
Nice.
Yucca. You can do this app, and you can just scan your whatever it is, and it'll say, this is not healthy, but here's some healthy alternatives and everything. So I love
That's
this
nice.
app. I mean, I love it.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
All right. So, what is one thing that you would like to tell all the listeners that you think might be beneficial to them? Just thinking about your whole story, because you haven't, and it hasn't been easy. You've had a lot of trials and tribulations and things that you've had to learn on this process to get to be this amazing human that you are right now. And like I say in my intro, it's our mosaic life. So all these things have created who you are. And so I'm not asking if you would change any of those things, because if you're like me, even though some of them were very traumatic, I wouldn't change a thing. But what kind of thing can you tell our listeners if they may be going through that dark night of the soul kind of thing, and they're hoping to get to this place of being better and whole and feeling like they are worthy of living and all that stuff? Is there something that you could maybe give them to help them in that? I mean, I know it's a big dish to be asking you to fill up.
But I mean, for someone that is like going through a dark night of the soul, I would say buckle up. It's not over.
Yeah.
And you're going to face many fears, many fears, but don't give up. Don't give up, because what you're going to experience after a while, it's going to be so much more awesome.
Yeah.
But it's freaky, but just by bringing more awareness in your everyday, that's my most efficient tool to bring more awareness. It's even more than meditating. I mean, I love meditating. It's awesome. I love to sit on my cushion every day, but it's more of being aware of those little trigger, like those little things that are triggering you. That's where you have to go to just like to go over, you got to go through it to go over it.
Right.
But all those little things, that's where the gold is.
Right.
That's where the gold is. That's how we heal. That's like every experience is an opportunity to learn more and to face yourself and to go through those things, so you can come the other way, on the other side, and just be like a better version of yourself. And that's the goal, right?
Right. And that's the visual that came to me when you were explaining all that, was like if you were in the water and you it's murky and you can't see, and you're just swimming and swimming and swimming, and all of a sudden you see this light up there, and it would be so easy to stop swimming because you're tired, and everything, but that it's right there, and so you keep going. And I will say there have been times when some of my journey of self-discovery and everything, where I felt like I was drowning, and not to tell people that it's so painful that they don't want to do anything, but that is what keeps a lot of people staying in their old, unproductive, unloved lives, because that is the easier way in the short term.
Yes.
But it's having the courage to say, I want something different, and being able to go through the journey to get you there.
Yeah. And I love when they say that courage is not the absence of fear, but just being there for the fear, just pushing through it, because it's going to be uncomfortable. Of course it is. I mean, like if you stay in your little comfort all the time, you're just going to stay in your comfort. There's nothing that's going to move.
There's so many things that are not easy to do, like learning to tie your shoes when you're a kid, but nobody said, well, you don't have to tie your shoes, bud. You don't have to learn it, just don't worry about it. I'll tie your shoes for the rest of your life, and driving a car. Let's face it, the first time we got in a car, it was like, check this, check that, check that. And oh my God, I can't see over here and behind me. And, and it was very scary. No matter how much you did schooling or anything about it, but it was like, and I bet if you been driving for a little while, you get in the car, you crank it up, you look at your mirrors and everything's go. And half the time you get where you're going, you don't even remember how you got there.
Right. Exactly.
Because when you go through these processes that are uncomfortable, over time, they become more comfortable. But, when it comes to the personal development, you're never done.
You're never
done. But you get where it's like, instead of being in the murky waters, you're in the sunlight, but there's another sunlight thing up here that would be better, and you're going to go for that. So it's not like you might dip back into the murky waters every now and then, but it's a process that you can go through. And if you would tell people how they can reach out to you if they want to help with you, because you help people with Ayurveda, and then you do some coaching on.
I call it like spiritual life coaching. Like,
okay.
Because I wasn't satisfied with life coaching, because people want to have like super effective advice from a life coach, and I'm more about like empowering people. But you have to take the step through your spiritual life, because it's not all about your psyche. It's not just about your body. It's like the whole thing, and that's why I put spiritual life coach, because that's the way I see works better. If I just do Ayurvedic treatment on the body, like, you're gonna come back to me like a couple months like down the road, because it's not working anymore.
Right.
You have to do the whole thing. Like, that's my people. They are wanting to do the whole thing.
Right.
They're not just want to address this one thing, because they're not going to come to me. It's going to be too much for them.
Right.
Because I'm going to point everything out, because I see it. I just see it.
Yeah. Well, it's like when somebody comes to me to lose weight. It's like, well, that may be what your ultimate goal is, but we're going to have to dive a little deeper, because if that's all you want, this isn't going to work. So tell people how they can get in touch with you, and if they're interested in talking to you about some of the stuff that you do.
So, well, people can go on my Facebook Messenger, on my website. There's my email, and you can reach out to me on there.
Well, tell them what it is, because on some of the platforms it's not written down, but some of them it is.
Yeah, well, I don't have like the
did you
put
Marigol, it on your thing?
Yeah, I think I did, but it's
no, I don't see it.
But I'm gonna send it to you, but it's since it's a Wix site, and I didn't pay for my own like domain stuff, so it's like marigold.com/Wix site for it's like,
so why don't you tell them how to spell your name however it is on Facebook, and then hopefully most people can at least reach out on Facebook. But
on Facebook, and I've got my website is listed on my Facebook anyway, so it's MARIGOLERA, Marigol Era.
Okay, because I will say, when I first wrote your name down in my calendar, it was Marigold. For some reason, it sounded like that's what it was supposed to be. So when I sent you your email, it was like, that came back. Why did it come back? So then I went back and looked, and I added a D in there. I didn't need that.
Marigold is a flower, and I'm not.
You are a flower.
You're
just not in the yard.
Yes.
All right. Well, this has been a tremendous pleasure. And when I share this out on the other platforms and everything, I will, if there's a place where I can put in that information, I will. So you can send that to me and I can make sure
Yes.
it's out there. But
Cool.
I feel such a great connection with you, and I can't wait to maybe have you on as a guest again, where you can
Yeah,
go into
sure.
deeper in some of this stuff, because we have gone a little longer than what I had
That's all
intended.
right. It happens all the time.
Yes, I know. It does with me too. So I got to figure this thing out. But but let me stop the recording here. So thank you everybody for listening, and keep coming back, because I'll be doing these every week.